Georgia Neill, and a retired social worker slash psychotherapist and today's presenter. I also volunteer with Truro's Climate Action Committee, which sponsors these monthly presentations. Next month, the presentation is with Emily Beebe, who's here, who's Truro's Health and Conservation Agent, and Cody Salisbury, the Provincetown Water System Superintendent. And they'll be talking about water, specifically the water that we share with Provincetown, and I forgot this wrong, but basically how that came about, and what we do to protect that water, both from keeping it clean and also the method of it. That kind of sums up in there's some thank yous and other odds and ends that I want to go over before we start. Thank you to Stop and Shop for having goodies behind you on the table. Help yourself to whatever. I also really want to thank the library, which co-sponsors these, and I especially want to thank Justine. We wouldn't be doing any of this without her. Justine not only sets up the room and takes it down, she makes our flyers. She has made it possible for me to have a slide presentation that hopefully will, if it goes well, it's because of Justine. If it doesn't go well, it's because of me. Seriously. Justine also films these monthly presentations. And then when she has time, gets them onto the library's YouTube station. If you ask questions or make comments, your voice will be heard, your face will not be seen. The Truro Climate Action Committee, I volunteer with it. There are 3 members of it. Carol Harris here is our chair. Rebecca Bruin at the table is a member. And the 3rd member is Lily Flanders, who's away. They're incredibly hardworking, dedicated people, and it's been a true joy to work with them. Because they're so hardworking, they need to take a pause. So the Climate Action Committee will be taking a break, but still doing the monthly presentations. And it's hoped that in the next couple months, while they're on break, the hope and plan is to recruit new members for the Climate Action Committee. So if you're in Truro and you have any interest, or you want to find out more what is involved with that, please talk to Carol after the meeting. Or if you know people who might be interested, or if you get home and next week you think, I really want to volunteer, or at least find out more about the Climate Action Committee, you can, if you go to the town website, there'll be a link to the Climate Action Committee.
And part-time as well as full-time residents are welcome.
Yes.
You don't have to be full-time to participate.
Right. And it really is a truly wonderful group to be a member of. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to ask a silly question, silly because you're all here for a reason. Who here has times of feeling anxious, scared, angry, sad, despairing, guilty about climate change and the effects on the environment? Okay. Most, if not everyone, raise their hands. Not surprisingly, again, you're here, so that probably wouldn't come if you thought, no problem whatsoever. But you're also not alone. There's even a term for it now, which is climate anxiety or eco-anxiety, and it's a growing phenomenon. More and more people are experiencing it. If I went outside and did a survey, if I did it last year and this year, the number would increase. The group that is most feeling it, the population, is young adults, young people, sort of teens and young adults. Sometimes that strikes me, and I get very sad about it, because we think of young people as, they're the ones who are supposed to kind of not get that they're mortal. They're invincible, and they're getting it more than anyone else, that we're in really big trouble, possibly existential trouble. So climate change exacerbates mental health problems. So it's not just like, the planet's in trouble, that means we're in trouble. Air pollution elevates anxiety. and rising temperatures are linked to an increase in suicide. So there's the emotional, like, oh, we're in trouble, but there's actually physiological reasons why we're feeling more anxious. So, how people can see that. There's going to be 3 parts to this presentation. The first will be looking at coping skills. We all got ways to cope. Some of them are better than others, we're going to be looking at what we already do to cope and what can we continue to do or add to our coping toolbox. The second part will be looking at a sort of different approach to coping, which is letting our emotions guide us and teach us about what actions we need to take, because taking action can be a really great way of coping. So we're going to be talking to our feelings. And part 3, we'll be looking at what kind of support do we need to either continue to cope with this, or to figure out what actions to take, or to take actions. So before I start, I want to just take a few minutes and talk about my own opinions and biases and perspectives. I realize in doing this, and I realize periodically, that as much as cognitively I get that we humans are not separate from our environment, and we are very much a small, interdependent part of it, I don't fully know that usually. I have moments where it's like I really get it. But mostly I don't fully know that, and I think that that's, I know I'm not alone with that, and I think that that's at least part of, if not a really big part of why we're in the shape that we're in. That if we think we can just continue to abuse and exploit this incredibly precious planet and its resources, this is where we end up. And it will get worse if we continue doing the same thing. We're in a time of incredible transformation, and if we continue doing nothing, or as much as we're doing, it's going to be a really bad transformation. We don't want to go there. Some people are already experiencing that. They're losing their lives because of climate change and the effects of it. But we could have a really positive transformation that results in our not only surviving, but even thriving. When I read information by climate activists, whether it's articles or books, people always talk about transformation. When I think about what does that really look like, there's a few things that come to mind. I think, wow, what will it really be like if we're not using fossil fuels? We'll have electric cars, our homes will all be electrified, every roof that can handle it or can benefit from it will have solar panels. We won't be using single-use plastics, if any plastic. When you go into Stop and Shop, you won't see stuff wrapped in plastic. That would be that's sort of mind-boggling to think, like, wow, no plastic. We won't be using chemical fertilizers. Our clothes, most of our clothes, if you think about what you're wearing today, probably most of it is from some synthetic material that's from oil, probably. So just on that level, that's kind of transformative. We in the US consume way more than our fair share of resources, so we need to cut back on what we consume. What's kind of interesting and challenging about that is that our economy, and probably just about every other economy on the planet, is based on consume, consume, consume. That's how we grow the economy, and we have to grow the economy always. That means we have to keep consuming. If we keep consuming so much, we kill the planet. So that's a dilemma, and figuring that out is going to be transformative. So, big changes for us. Big changes, I think, in our economic system. If we need all of us to have electrified homes and solar panels and electric cars, most people can't afford that. Most people in the US can't afford that, never mind people across the planet. So if I think about it, I think, well, then we need a whole different economic system so that it's not about if you're rich, you can afford these things, or, oh well, we can't afford, the planet can't afford that, and therefore we can't afford to do that. So we have to figure out how do we transform our economic system so that everyone can have solar panels and electric cars and mini splits and geothermal pumps. What a lot of experts say is we have the technological know-how, the knowledge to stop climate change, to maybe even revert, well, in time it will reverse. If we get out of the planet's way, it will heal itself. But a lot of the experts say we have the technological know-how, what we don't have is the political will. So for us to do this transformation also means that it has to be corporate changes, legislative changes. So we're talking really major changes that we can choose to do, or we can destroy ourselves. Basically, that sounds kind of stark, but I think that's the change. That's the choice. I happen to believe we can do it. Margaret Mead never doubted that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Or a newer version of a hero. When you are together in this struggle, then there are no limits to what you can accomplish. That's Greta Thunberg. We have made incredible changes and transformations historically. We have done that. Whether that's making slavery illegal, and since then all of the civil rights movements that have happened, and in some ways I hesitate saying that because we have to keep fighting for that, and sometimes it steps back, but it doesn't erase what we have accomplished. I never thought, several years ago now, when marriage equality was still not a right, I would talk to friends and we were really iffy about whether we'd ever see it in our lifetimes. It's here. And lots of other changes. Voting rights for various groups of people. We ended the Vietnam War. We have ended various diseases, epidemics. HIV and AIDS. HIV used to mean you got AIDS and then you died. That was the reality for people. And now if you're in a country that can afford to give the medicine, it's something that people live with, and the viral load is nothing and they don't even transmit it to others. So we can create and cause incredible changes. The piping plover population is on the rise. We brought, after we nearly killed all the eagles, we brought them back from the brink of extinction. So there's a whole lot of wonderful things that we can do if we have the will to do it. I also want to say that major changes don't tend to happen because the people in power say, let's do the right thing. It happens because individuals get together with other like-minded individuals and they talk about how things aren't right, we need to change things. They start groups and other groups form and the groups get together and a movement starts and changes happen. Collective action, individual action is empowering. It's empowering that my partner and I have solar panels, but it's really empowering when we take collective action and we make things happen. There's one other thing about that is there are probably like the oil executives and others want us to believe if we just pay attention to our climate footprint, carbon footprint, if we just take care of that, then that's all we really need to do. No. So for example, getting back to, if you go into Stop and Shop and just about everything's in plastic, I may not want to use plastic, but if I want to eat and clothe myself and have some supplies, I know there are some people out there who have managed to figure out how to not use any plastic. They're really rare. So to expect that us as individuals are going to solve all this is unrealistic. We need corporate change, we need legislative change. There are things that need to be banned for us to get through this crisis. Okay. I'm gonna periodically show some positive things that are happening, because we all need to know that we really can change this. So I think Massachusetts was the first state to officially have a position of climate chief. So that's in place. The Inflation Reduction Act, which came about when Biden first got into office, is expected to decrease. Will change projected CO2 emissions to about 50% below 2005 levels by 2030. Most countries in the EU are going to meet the 2030 targets for renewable energy. Now, some of them, unfortunately, like Norway, gets most of their electricity from renewable sources. Unfortunately, some of those countries, like Norway, they're still pumping oil, so it's not as good as it should be. Europe, though, gets about half of its power from clean sources. So good things are happening. And not that long ago, several years ago, there was a lot of talk. I knew people who they stopped recycling because they thought, what's the point? It just, gets set someplace and then it gets shipped to another country and then it gets dumped in the ocean. In fact, 85% of what Truro brings to be recycled is recycled and it's done domestically. That's pretty cool. So, coping skills. Any questions or comments so far? Okay. Actually, I want to step back a bit. So we're going to be here for about an hour and a half, give or take. And I know I'm covering a lot of information. My hope is that people will leave with a little more information, maybe some other ideas on how to cope, or what steps to take, what actions to take, and also maybe a little more motivation to do so, and a little more hope that it makes a difference. So coping skills are actions that might reduce the intensity of our emotions, or change our perspective on them, or change our thinking, or our focus, or decrease our physical tension. We all need a toolbox of coping skills, and just like at home, you might have a toolbox, you don't just have a hammer or just a screwdriver, you have several things. It's good to have several coping skills, because sometimes it gets boring to do the same thing, but also because there's no one coping skill that's going to work all the time and for everyone. So good to have a variety. If you go online and you type in something like coping skills or relaxation or mindfulness or grounding, stress reduction, you will come up with a whole bunch of stuff. So we're going to go over some coping skills and practice probably about 3, but make use of the internet and see what else is out there and what is helpful. So all of us do have ways to cope. What do you do now? What helps you, whether it's around climate change or other stuff, what do you do that helps you to feel better, to feel less stressed in your lives?
Recycle.
Recycle. It helps you feel better. Good, I'm doing something. Yeah. What else?
Walk in nature.
Walk in nature, yeah. Yeah. And they even have done research about that, shows being in nature helps and movement helps. Yeah.
Interacting with my animals.
Yeah, yeah. Animals are great for that.
Serve on boards that are taking action.
Okay, yes, such as the Truro Climate Action Committee.
Yeah.
Or they have a river restoration.
Right.
Yeah. Before I started volunteering with the Climate Action Committee, and I was still working, I was actually more stressed about the climate, and I knew that, when I retired, then I would find a group to work with. I didn't know that I would actually feel less pessimistic about the climate. I don't know what's gonna happen, maybe we are all doomed, but I dwell on that less and I feel it less and I actually feel more hopeful because I'm doing something. What else do people do? What helps?
Painting.
Painting? Painting, yes.
Dancing in the living room.
Dancing in the living room. or anywhere else.
I think also mentor young people.
Mentoring young people. Yeah.
Instead of using a paper bag at the shopping, use your own.
Yeah.
Stop and Shop at one time paid you a nickel if you brought your own bag.
Yeah.
Now they're charging you a nickel.
Don't.
So they hate to disparage Stop and Shop because they try.
Yeah.
But when the bottle bill is going to be changed in the future, like in Maine, they give you your own bag and your own number, and you don't have to distribute this and that and this and that. You put it all in the bag and they do it for you. And it's 15 cents a bottle or a can, all more than we have, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you want to see things like that, and you don't want to see Market Basket. When last time they tried to change the bottle bill, they had people there trying to discourage you. So
Okay.
we need help.
Yeah, we do. Okay, thank you. Anything else that people do? Yeah,
I go to the playground with my grandchildren a
nice.
couple of days a week. And ostensibly I'm taking care of them, but really I'm just being with all these kids and joy and
Yeah.
movement and
Yeah, good coping skill. So one of the things about coping skills is if you think about things you like to do, even if you're not doing it to cope, those are great things to do when you're having a hard time. So I like walking regardless of my mood, but if I walk when I'm having a hard day, I feel better. And I know that, and there's many things like that. So if you're not sure what to do, think about what you like to do. If you're not sure what to do when you're having a hard time, do something that you know you usually enjoy doing. I just want to go over a few of these that are really easy to do. Smile. There's been some research that shows that if we just put a little smile on our faces, our moods improve. So if everyone here puts a little smile on your face and notice, do you feel better? Now, it's different, there's a whole group of us doing it. If you look around, you see everyone smiling, it's kind of cool. How can you not feel a little better when you see that? But even if you're having a hard time, you can play around with that. Just try smiling a bit and see if it shifts something. Movement of any sort, music, playing with adults or kids, cultivating curiosity. It's interesting I'm feeling this way, but isn't that interesting, this tension in my belly? Curiosity can shift things. Think about solutions. If you're spending a lot of time reading, listening to a lot of negative news and you happen to notice that you're not feeling so good, you might want to limit how much you're listening. You know, good for us to be informed, but good for us to keep that at a manageable level. Talking with like-minded people, reading, writing, breathing, putting your hand on your heart can be very soothing, especially if you have the intention that you want to soothe yourself. Practicing gratitude. You know, if you every day think of 3 or 4 things, really think about them. Don't just sort of list them in your head and go on, but really feel the gratitude you have for living in a beautiful place or having the friends you have or whatever. That really improves mood over time. Know you aren't alone. So whether you're recycling or picking up garbage on the beach or doing whatever you do that protects the planet or helps the planet in some way, know that there are literally millions of people around the planet, and you are just one of them, who are doing things to help protect the planet. That's kind of a cool thing. I think that's kind of a cool thing to think about, to imagine like, oh, there's millions of me doing this. I didn't list things like drinking alcohol or gambling or having a cigarette or doing drugs. Those absolutely can be short-term solutions. I didn't put them down because they're not so great long-term solutions. They can cause more problems in the long run. They're just riskier. If you're someone who tends to use coping skills that have bad consequences, or potentially might, and you're not quite ready to stop those, you can at least add positive coping skills to your repertoire. So we're gonna practice a few things. One is a breathing exercise, and I'm gonna walk you through it, so don't worry about doing it yet, but let me explain it to you and then we'll do it. With breathing exercises, generally speaking, it's about belly breathing, deep breathing, so if everyone puts their hand on your belly button and you take a deep breath in through your nose. Do you feel your belly expand? If so, you're doing deep belly breathing. If not, make that happen. Take a deep breath in through your nose and force your belly out. And then you've got it. That's deep breathing. So in this exercise, I'm going to ask you to breathe in deeply while I count to 3. You breathe in through your nose. And then I'm going to ask you to hold it while I count slowly to 4. And then I'm going to ask you to exhale while I count slowly to 5. If that feels like too long, you can switch it to 2, 3, 4 as opposed to 3, 4, 5. So it's 3 in through your nose, 4 to hold, 5 exhale through your mouth. And then there'll be a pause. Two things I want to ask people to do. Either close your eyes or look down just so you're less distracted by other things. And the other thing is just kind of check in with yourself. How you feeling? What's your general sense of well-being? Is there tension? If you want, you could give it a number. Like my tension's a 7 or 3. Just notice what it is so you can compare it afterwards. Okay, so close your eyes or look down. For the belly breathing. And as I count to 3, you're going to start to breathe in through your nose. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Pause. Inhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Pause. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I want you to continue doing that for a few sets, quietly counting to yourself. I'll let you know when we're done.
Time to wake up.
Not yet. Okay, finish whatever set you're in. And open your eyes. And check in with yourself, how you doing? Any change in how you were feeling before? Do you think this is something you could use that would help when you're feeling stressed? Any thoughts or comments? I'm sure some of you are already familiar with it. Is it something that you think could help if you're stressed out? Seeing some head nods. Okay. The next technique I want to go over is stop and distract. This is a really helpful one if you're sort of stuck in your thinking. You know, you're on this loop, you're just thinking the same stuff over and over. It is not constructive thinking. It maybe makes you feel not so good. But you're just sort of stuck there. And the way this one works, and I'll explain it, is that you become aware of like, oh, I'm just thinking the same stuff over and over again, it's not helping me, I don't feel good from it. You notice that, you tell yourself in your mind, stop. You can picture a big red stop sign. So when I know when she learned it, she said she pictured the Supreme singing Stop in the Name of Love. I happen to like that better than the stop sign, but whatever works for you. And then, really important, you have to think of something else. There are people who have a little sheet. Okay, what else am I gonna think about? Because when you're really stressed out, it's like, I don't know what else to think about. So if you have a little list of things you can think about. For the sake of this, it might be some ideas you might think about, what you're gonna do for the rest of the day, what movie you saw, what book you're reading. You could sing a song to yourself. You could name all the flowers you could think of, the plants, what you had for breakfast. Get into the details of it, because you wanna take your mind away from the stuff your mind was stuck on and move it on to something else. With stop and distract, you may have to do it many times because our minds sometimes wanna go back to that same thing and you have to catch yourself, no, stop, go to something else. What I want you to do for this one is think about something that is mildly to moderately distressful. I don't want you to totally stress yourselves out, but something that, it could be climate related or it could be something else in your life, but something that is somewhat stressful. Notice how you feel physically when you think of that. And notice what your thoughts are about it. Notice what the emotion is that happens, if you can. If you can't pinpoint all those, that's okay. Just get a general sense of it. And now, as you're aware of what you're thinking about that's somewhat distressful, tell yourselves in your mind, stop. Stop signs, screams, stop. And now think about something else. Let your mind go to something else. And make yourself think about that. And check in with yourself, how you feeling? Did the stress level change from when you were thinking about this stressful thing? Did it change? And this is something that people feel like they could use that would help, or not so much. So it's not. Again, there's no one right tool for everyone. Okay, last one we're going to do is consider what's called a grounding exercise. And this one we're going to really tune into our senses. So what I want you to do, check in how you feel and then just do a mental check, an emotional check with yourself, physical check. See how you're doing. Then I want you to pick one of the walls to look at. Count the number of paintings on that wall. And then pick one of the paintings and really look at it. And this isn't about what your judgment is about it, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's a good painting or not. This is about just observing it, using your ability to see. You might notice what are the colors, what are the shapes, are there different shades of the same color? Then look up either at the ceiling or the floor. And again, notice the shades of color, the patterns, the textures. And now switch to what you hear. So you might hear the sound of my voice. When I'm not talking, what else do you hear? If there's a moment of silence, notice what the sound of silence is like. Now tune into what you feel, your sense, your tactile sense. What's the temperature of the air? Is the temperature of your hands, feet, or face is all the same, or is it different? Just notice that. Rub your hands on your pants or the chair. Notice the sense of that. What's the texture, the color, the temperature, the texture. Feel your body on the chair. Feel your feet on the floor, maybe even tap them, notice the sensation of that. You might even see if you smell anything. If you don't smell anything, what's that experience like to not smell anything? And you might see if you taste anything. And now check in with yourself again, come back to the room and yourself and just notice if that shifted anything for you or if this is another technique that could help if you're having a hard time. And again, no one technique for everyone and no one technique every time. So this might help sometimes and other times, I gotta try something else. How are people doing? Do you need a little break? Or keep going? Okay. If you do need to stretch or get some water or goodies or whatever, do it. Okay. So now we're gonna move into listening to our feelings and letting our feelings tell us what they're needing from us. So our emotions are messengers to ourselves. If we're angry, it's telling ourselves that something is wrong or unfair or unjust. If we're sad, we're experiencing or facing potential loss. If we're scared, we're telling ourselves there's potential danger or threat. If we're happy, it means things are going well. So the coping tools we did before, it's really not to get rid of our feelings. It's to keep them at a manageable level, maybe put them aside for a while. But at some point it makes sense, often, not always, to check in with our feelings and see what's going on, what do you need from me? Why are you feeling this? So we're gonna spend a little time talking to our emotions. You do it internally with yourselves. And the idea, some people think talking to my emotions, this is pretty weird, talking to myself. We talk to ourselves all the time. If we are wondering what to eat for lunch, we're talking to ourselves. If we're remembering a movie we saw or a conversation, we're talking to ourselves. We talk to ourselves constantly. This is just having a conscious conversation with ourselves. So, the way this will work is that I'm gonna ask you to think about something related to climate change that is, that you have some emotions about, some emotional reaction about, and have you noticed what that emotion is? Acknowledge it, which means kind of saying hi to it, yeah, recognize that I'm feeling angry or sad or scared. And then you're gonna ask the question something like, what is it that you need me to hear? What is it you need me to do in order to feel better? So it's kind of like if you were talking to a good friend who's having a hard time, you might say, what's going on? How can I help you? It's that kind of same conversation. So I want you to think for a minute about something about climate change that is distressing. It doesn't have to be super distressing, but at least some. If that's sort of difficult to come up with right now, you might want to think about, is there going to be a fire on Cape Cod when we have a drought? How much flooding is there going to be and how soon is it going to be till it's disastrous? Are the right whales going to survive? There's many things we could think about that are distressful. So once you have that, then I want you to notice what happens in your body when you think about it. Is there tension somewhere? Maybe heat or cold? And notice what your thoughts are. Do you have specific thoughts? It might be like, uh-oh, or I don't want to think about this, or oh my God, or whatever the thoughts are. Just notice the thoughts and notice your emotion. Do you feel angry, sad, scared, despairing? Some variation of any of those. So now I want you to talk to yourself. You could pick either the sensation or the emotion, something about that experience, or the general experience. Sometimes it can help to think of it as a different person, but it's a part of you. So I want you to start a conversation, so acknowledge, yeah, I'm feeling such and such. What do you need from me? I'm gonna ask that part of you, what is it you need from me? Is it, do I need to hear something, do something? What do you need from me? If that part of you tells you something that's not realistic, or goes against your values, you can say, I can't do that. I may have a hard time, help me figure out what I can do that's gonna help you feel better. So for example, I was running this by someone who said, well, my first reaction was shoot the bastards. No, can't do that. Come up with something that seems kind of realistic that you could do. And when you think you have something, run it by this emotional part of yourself. How about if I recycle more? How about if I join the Climate Action Committee? Will that do it? And see what the response is. Again, you're having a heart-to-heart conversation with yourself. If you don't come up with anything, look at this list, see if anything. There's plenty we can do, and this is only partial. So you can think of like, do any of these things fit? If you already have something, that's great, but if you're like stymied, you could look and see if any of these things fit. When you think you have something, then ask yourself first, am I able to do this? If the answer is no, then go back to the drawing board and say, okay, I can't do that, what else could I do? And talk with yourself about what you could do. If it's something you're able to do, great. The second question when you have something that you're able to do is to ask yourself, are you willing to do it? And if the answer is an absolute yes, great. If the answer is like, yeah, maybe, I don't know, then negotiate with yourself. Well, maybe I could, if I tinkered it this way, maybe I can't buy an EV, but maybe I could drive a little less. Something. See how you can negotiate with yourself to come up with something that you would be not only able to do, but willing to do. And if it's absolutely no, I'm just not willing to do that, then get back to the drawing board, come up with something that you're willing to do, willing and able. When you have that, thank yourself for helping you figure this out. If you can't come up with anything, can you at least make an agreement with yourself that you'll continue to think about it? And that might mean talking to other people or sleeping on it or reading more so you can come up with something to do. And again, this is actually part of coping. Taking action helps us feel more empowered and better and more connected. The other really important thing is to find something that brings you some joy, happiness, sense of reward, whether that's feeling connected to others or empowered or just happy or fulfilled, like you're doing something constructive. So it needs to be something that you're going to want to do. And that brings you some good feelings, because otherwise you burn out and that's not the goal. Good old Goldilocks. I don't know if people can read this, it's not so clear. The first French Goldilocks is saying, this is, I can't read it, this is way too big. The middle one, she's saying this task feels too small. The third one, she's saying this task feels just right. So you need to do the Goldilocks method, figure out what the next step is, what's something you can do that feels just right for you. So where are y'all with this? Do people come up with something they can do or continue to do? That feels you're able and willing to do it? Cool. Okay, some other positive slides. More electric vehicles were sold than was anticipated. My understanding is that there's probably gonna be a leveling off, that, you know, there was a bump and then it levels off before we go up again. But more and more people are switching to electric vehicles. An increasing number of universities and colleges are using geo-exchange to heat and cool buildings without burning fossil fuels, so they're taking the warmth and cool from the earth. I guess it's quite a process for something as large as a university campus. That's a lot of work, so it might take several years before they're fully up and running, but more and more universities and colleges are doing this. Okay, so we're gonna switch to how to get and give support. So we're in a crisis and it's hard to handle crises alone. So it is important to think about what kind of support do you need? What kind of support do you need in order to continue to cope well? What kind of support do you need in order to maybe fine tune what it is you wanna do? Or what kind of support do you need in order to take those steps? Any thoughts about that? What are people thinking? What's gonna help you in this process that we're in this transformation that we're in? Yes?
Well, she keeps bees. I'm just starting to learn to. And what we found when we started that process a long time ago was that there's an entire community out there of beekeepers who are willing to give support and help to rookies and people who are just coming into, you know, that sort of hobby. And there's a whole world behind that of entomology and, you know, mutual support and not using insecticides and encouraging your neighbors and the people around you to stop using insecticides as well to support global insect populations. And it's kind of like, it's something that you don't think about until you're in it, but it helps to have people thinking the same way.
Yes, like-minded people, we need like-minded people around us. That's a wonderful example. We need pollinators, right? If we're gonna survive, we need pollinators. And it's interesting to think about how everything, you know, one thing connects to another thing, so it brings you in connection with another whole community and it encourages you to talk to neighbors and to make some really important changes. That's great.
Our neighbors will say hi and comment that they saw our bees. They don't know whose bees they are, but it's they're looking more deeply
And thinking
because
about it.
these conversations start happening, so
Yeah.
it's this kind of ripple.
And what we hope is that it encourages them, now that they know that we're very intentionally fostering a community of insects on our property, that they'll use more natural stuff on their lawns when spraying for insects or when fertilizing, just so that they don't harm our hives.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's not like all of them have, you know, made that change, but
Right,
I mean,
right.
hopefully in the future sometime awareness will spread that when you spray for stuff like mosquitoes, you're killing beneficial insects as well.
Cool. What else do you need for support? Yes,
When I had a dog, I'd take her for various walks.
Yeah.
And I started, if it was a big park and there were a lot of cans, I would pick up the can. If it was a small park, I would take a paper bag and pick up litter. And then I was into this for a couple of years when I said, gee, why don't I add a doggy bag to this too? Because I wasn't. So I started doing that, and it's a feel-good thing.
it's a feel-good thing. Yeah, so in that case, you didn't necessarily need support of other people, it just felt good to do. It was a reward in itself.
That's true. I belong to a club and one member goes to his walks and in 1 year he picked up 700 pieces of litter. He counted them, he cared that much.
If you multiply that by millions of people around the planet picking up litter, good for us, good for you. Cindy?
I think it's really important for us to hear about all the positive things that are happening. It gets daunting to, listen to the crisis, the impact, we all know that. And even if you don't watch the news, there's not enough information about what is really happening in a positive way. Like just listening to what you said made me happy. Felt encouraged, hopeful. And I think that's been very hard to find on a regular basis. You can research it on the internet, but I think part of what's going to change is also an energetic change. And the energetic change comes from being exposed to positive things. Like that generates hope. So I am encouraged when I hear positive things, just as simple as that, but not so simple, powerful. So that's what I look for. Like I think I would love to hear, just in our communities, what people are doing, what's happening internationally, because there's so much that's going on also.
Yeah.
If I think about corporate change, I get very depressed because corporate and political and economic, we're talking about changing capitalism. You know what, that's a daunting, because we know why. So for me, that happiness about like what even corporations that are doing some changes.
Yeah.
That's for me what would be really empowering and exciting and give me hope. That I
So
can
there's-
spread that too.
I have a list of books and resources, way not complete, but one of these people, Elena Wood, and I'm sure there's others like her on YouTube, it should be. But you can find her on YouTube and just online, but she's a scientist and she does a whole thing of just letting people know positive things. Like
Right.
she'll have a series of
Right.
just rapid fire kind of one after the other. Here's some good things happening.
Yeah.
Can we make these slides available?
Yeah, if people want them, actually I have a slide at the end of
Okay.
meeting, you can let me know. You can either take a photo of this or I'll email it to you if you want.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, this is nowhere near complete. Probably if you looked at any of these online, you'd find a million other links. Maybe not a million, but a lot.
That would have
And some of them are local,
people would look forward to it.
and it's really helpful to work with the Truro Climate Action Committee. I'll say that again. Okay. The other thing I want to mention in terms of support is that Rebecca in her group has at times been pushing, we need to start support groups and study groups, groups of like-minded people who want maybe support to do what they're doing, or to figure out what you're doing, or to take action together. If people want to meet as a group, if some of you want to meet as a group, there's a sheet at the table. Please sign it and legibly put your email address. If it's not legible, you won't hear from us. And if there's people who sign up for that, Rebecca and I will be with the group for 1 or 2 times to help organize and get you going where you need to go. Okay. And here's some more positive things. In Pittsburgh, they closed a coal processing plant, and weekly ER visits decreased by 42% for heart-related problems. Really impressive. We can reduce the plastic waste stream by buying less plastics. Again, hard to do. By recycling, by encouraging others to do the same, and by advocating for more bans on plastics. In 2024, this year, oil and gas companies will have to pay a fee for emitting more methane gas than the limit set by the federal government. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
there's one other thing I want to do before we end, which is a little story. It's the snowflake story. Some of you may have heard it, but here's how it goes. Two little birds are sitting on a branch and it's snowing. And one little bird says, "Do you know the weight of the snowflake?" And the other bird says, "Snowflake doesn't weigh anything. I mean, I'm little, it lands on me, I don't even feel it. Doesn't weigh anything." The first bird says, "Actually, a snowflake can cause this branch to break," and flies off, leaving the other little bird to think, "That's ridiculous." So the little bird is sitting there by itself and it's snowing, and then there's one snowflake that comes down and the branch breaks. We are all snowflakes. By our little selves, maybe it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. But if you put us all together, we make a difference. We really can make a difference. And if we don't know which of us is gonna be that one last snowflake that pushes us around the corner and into some positive transformation.
Yeah.
So go forth and be snowflakes with others. Any questions, comments? Yes.
I just wanna make, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, but all the techniques take practice. So doing them once, okay, but trying to build the habits and doing them repeatedly, there's never an end to it. It's a practice, not a one-step succeed and go forward.
You're right.
So think of that, keep that in mind.
Yes.
The other thing I think about
Let me
is,
the other thing I want to add to that is that it's like any new skill. The more you practice it, the better you get at it, and our brains get used to it more. So it's like, "Oh, I'm stressed, I should take a deep breath." You know, it becomes more automatic. And it isn't something like, "Oh yeah, I know how to do deep breathing, so I'm okay." You have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to practice it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because stress, it's not like, even if things were great in the world, there'd still be stressors. Okay, great.
one other thing I think is, when you do one or two things to address climate change, no matter how big or small, once you do 1, 2, and 3, and 4, suddenly become very doable. So we put solar panels on, and it was a long conversation, a lot of research, and once we did that and saw the results, getting a hybrid car became mentally easier to consider. Putting in a heat pump hot water heater just became a little bit easier to do. So I think the first time or two you make a change in your life and do something different that addresses climate change, it snowballs and becomes easier to make subsequent changes.
Like snowflakes.
Yeah.
What was that one?
Like snowflakes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Georgia, that was informative and uplifting, and I brought another sign-up sheet to invite everyone to sign up for the Friends of Herring River newsletter, of which Truro is very much a part of, and Emily might recall a day-long site visit with the Truro Conservation Department and lots of support and technical assistance, so that's another way to stay informed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Catherine.
I just want to say that, I think that there's a lot of research on this, but one of the biggest climate degraders is the amount of war in the world, the military-industrial complex, and which the U.S. is one of the centers in the world. And I think, like Greta Thunberg, she's on the front lines of what's happening in Gaza. She speaks out about what's happening in Gaza. And young people have made the connection that you have to be involved in Black Lives Matter, you have to be involved, you have to build a coalition. And sometimes I think that the climate movement, gets down on it. It just gets insular and it doesn't really connect. And really, to make the kind of change we need coalitions. We need people to be involved in all parts of it. even if it's just writing a letter to your senator, it's important not to tune out to what else is happening in the world, especially in this country.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know sometimes I think when I hear about all the horrors happening in different parts of the world with wars, I think, and we're not talking about what species are getting wiped out, what animals are getting wiped out, what's happening to the level of air pollution from all the
And the mines that are and the horrible mining that's happening in Africa so that we can have batteries.
That's a real dilemma.
Can't tune out to what's happening at all levels of the world and just deal with climate.
Yes.
Vote green.
Vote green. Yeah, really. You know, vote and think about who you're voting for. Yeah. Run for office. Chuckles at that, but some people vote run for office, or some people are working for the town, doing good stuff. Anything else? So again, if you're interested in being part of a group forming for support or action or study, sign up. If you want any of the slides, you can reach me now.
And this transcends Truro. So if I know we have folks here who are not from Truro, thank you for being here. And you can participate in any of this. We're not town limited.
Right.
Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you.